Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah. We continue reading from Imam Al-Ghazali's Jawahir al-Quran, the Jews the Quran spares. Still reading Surah Al-Nur. The last session was about Ayat Al-Nur, the verse of the light. And in this session, inshallah, we'll begin with the first verse of the second selection. These are verses 36 to 40 of Surah Al-Nur. And I will, inshallah, read after the verse of the light, which begins with Allah Nur Samawat al-Ard. In the next verse 36, أعوذ بالله السميع من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم في بيوت أذن الله أن ترفع ويذكر فيها اسمه يسبح له فيها بالغدو والآصال. Literally, it begins with in houses that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala permitted that they will be raised. Of course, here these houses are the houses of worship, as the next verse, of course, will explain the context, obviously. And where His name is mentioned, the name of Allah, He is glorified there morning and evening. In houses, what is it that is in these houses? We need to go back to we're not going to read any more of the verse of the light, but simply one thing that emerges from this verse, it's the light. So the light practically shines, the light of we talk about spiritual light, the light of the Qur'an, light of Islam. There's illumination there. So this light coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the light of the heavens and the earth, His light, divine light, His light, the light of the believer, ultimately it's in houses of worship that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala permitted. In fact, it is in order to pray, you need a place to pray individually. You can pray anywhere, almost anywhere. You can pray in aeroplanes, you can pray in the desert, you can pray in the desert, you can pray on a ship, on the deck, in your room. So air, land and sea, very few places we're not supposed to pray. Talk about filthy places, bathrooms, etc. So, but for a congregational prayer, the first thing that the Prophet ﷺ did in Medina in the year 622, talk about the year of the Hijrah, when the Prophet ﷺ migrated from Mecca to Medina, the first thing that he did was building the mosque. First thing. That's how important the mosque is. And it remained the public space. The mosque is not only for the congregational prayer and you just split circles of learning, debating public issues. And women did participate. This hadith in which one of the mothers of the faithful, when she heard basically someone calling for saying Ayyuhan Nas, and she wanted to respond and go, someone next to her told her, why would you go effectively? And she said, I am from Nas, the people. Women are part of that, collective, the community, the ummah. They have their own role to play in every respect. في بيوت أذن الله أن ترفع ويذكر فيها اسمه. So the mosque will have the حكم of the salah itself, صلاة الجمعة, الصلوات الخمس, the 5 daily prayers, the Friday prayer. This is where the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioned day and night. The mosques are not for trivial things. The mosques are not for idle talk. The mosques are not for negative things. So it's not a court. It's not a place where you dispute things. If you have any issues with anybody, you don't settle it in the mosque because you're not supposed to. You're not supposed to have a heated debate, and it's not appropriate. The mosques have been built simply for acts of devotion, whether it's prayer, recitation of the Qur'an, dhikr, teaching, etc. The Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith narrated by both Bukhari and Muslim, he who builds a mosque for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, يبتغي وجه الله, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will build for him the equivalent in paradise. Another version, this is the version of the Bukhari and Muslim, rahimahullah. Another version narrated by Ibn Majah, he who builds a mosque in which the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioned, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will build him a house in paradise. The many traditions were mentioned about building the mosque, respecting them, even the cleaning the mosque, using incense. Maybe one word about, because the light is the light of guidance, the light of the book, the light of the Qur'an. Originally, Islamic art developed in 3 directions all related to the Qur'an. Recitation, beautifying the one's voice with the Qur'an, not for the sake of the beautiful voice, but we know from the hadith of a companion who said to the Prophet ﷺ, had I known that you were listening, لحبرت لك تحبيرا, that he would have beautified his voice even more. So we have the 3 areas that evolved in Islamic art: recitation of the Quran, number 2, calligraphy, and still is the case. People, Muslim calligraphers from lands where it's not only Arabs, from Southeast Asia to Turkey to North Africa. Islamic art is an amazing thing. And number 3 is the mosque itself, all related to the Quran. The mosque is not a place for selling or buying. Talk about the actual mosque. And part of the story of cleaning the mosque to keep it clean. We have more than one tradition. But I've noticed that a very important statement by Ibn Kathir, that one should not pass through the mosque carrying fresh meat for fear that blood will drip from the meat, out of respect for the mosque. This also, a woman who is menstruating is um, is prohibited from going through the mosque, and it's conditional. إذا خافت التلويث, if she is worried that she will that she will pollute the place. If she thinks she will, and probably today in most societies, women have precautions, and probably this is not, maybe for most of them, this is not the case. They have adequate care, but the idea is the mosque is a place for dhikr, for salah, for the Qur'an, for teaching Islam, and it's not a place where you can raise your voice. You don't raise your voice in the mosque, even when you recite the Quran. Okay, we have to explain. This is not to prevent recitation of the Quran when it is known. For example, we know it is expected. We know that, inshallah, this will be the case. That on Fridays you'll have a recitation of the Quran. I can speak about Al-Aqsa Mosque, for example. There are a couple of lectures before the Salat al-Jum'ah. After the lectures, there is a recitation of the Quran, and then we have the call for the prayer, the first call for the prayer. So people, the reciter of the Quran does use the mic. The lectures are intended for the larger, for the whole mosque, and we talk about, inshallah, tens of thousands of people. In fact, there is a new sound system at Al-Aqsa Mosque, and they have been testing it for the last couple of days. But for someone, if there's no, if it's not an official thing, and you just simply don't raise your voice with whatever, but including the recitation of the Quran, so people will not bother each other. But so it's different from someone reciting for the whole mosque using the official, the holding the mic, if you will. There's a story narrated by Imam al-Bukhari, rahimahullah. This is where Umar al-Khattab radhiyallahu anhu noticed two men who raised their voice, and he asked them, "Where are you from?" So it could have been the question, "Who are you?" or "Where are you from?" They said, "From Taif, Taif city, an hour away from Mecca, an hour away by car." He said, "Had you been from this town, I would have effectively punished you. You are raising your voices in the mosque of the Messenger of God, sallallahu alaihi wasallam." And there are, this is not the only story about Umar ibn Khattab. This is mentioned by Al-Bukhari in his hadith. The merit of praying in a congregation, so in a mosque, for example, the congregation could be in the desert. It could be. I remember in around 1994, I traveled from Kuala Lumpur to Jeddah for Hajj, and it was 747. And at the time, they did not utilize every single inch of the aeroplane, so there was plenty of space next to the stairs that lead to the upper deck on the aeroplane, and many of the hosts who of the Saudi airline. So we prayed. I joined them, and we prayed a congregational prayer. So a congregational prayer could take place anywhere, but the mosque is the place. The difference is your congregational prayer anywhere is 25 times 25 folds compared to someone praying solo on his own or on her own. So what's the difference between a congregation prayer in your own building and the mosque? Well, walking to the mosque in itself, you'll be rewarded for that. If the believer performs ablution at home, he leaves to the mosque, and this is only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the sake of prayer. It is not because he's going to meet someone who's going after the prayer they will discuss the business deal. Simply, this is only for the prayer. Every step that he takes, when he walks to the mosque, he will be raised a degree, and he will be forgiven a sin. And if he prays, and the angels will continue to pray for him as long as he is still put in the place of prayer. Allahumma salli alayhi, Allahumma irham. He remains in a prayer as long as he is waiting for the prayer also. And it has been mentioned that there is no prayer for the neighbor of the mosque except in the mosque. This is highly recommended. Okay, so it's not. One might find himself in a position where he cannot go to the mosque for whatever reason. For whatever reason, we don't talk about systematically watching soap operas on TV. That's not what we mean. He just returned from work, and there was no way that he will take a shower. See that you talk about a plumber who's he is stinky because of his clothes are stinking dirt, or someone who works in a car workshop, and it's not really possible for them to go to the mosque except after a shower. So one prayer might be, well, he would have to pray at home, for example, and later on he would join the congregation. The Prophet ﷺ taught us, this is narrated by Muslim in his companion, in this sound tradition, that the Prophet ﷺ said, if one of you enters the mosque, he should say, Allahumma iftah li abwaab rahmatik, oh my Lord, open for me the gates of your mercy. And if he leaves, he should say, my Lord, open for me the gates of your fadlik, all the gates of good, the gates of your favors. And of course, one might say other things as well as part of the sunnah. Also, one is advised to خُذُوا زِينَتَكُمْ. It has been interpreted as when you go to the mosque, يا بني آدم خُذُوا زِينَتَكُمْ عند كل مسجد. Something that we simply mention in this context. Zina, it has been interpreted as the wudu, the ghusl itself, the being clean, part of the what Muslims should do on Fridays, but not only Fridays, of course, if one pays attention, but at least once a week. You talk about people who lived in the desert. Water was scarce, but still they needed to have a shower before going to the mosque on Friday. So zina was understood on one level as ablution, could be ghusl, depending, and some others understood this also as wearing your best, let's say, to the mosque. I did read about some scholars who had special clothing for the Friday prayer. The Imam Malik has been mentioned that when he wanted to teach the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ to in the circle of learning in the mosque, he would wear his best, and he would wear perfume, etc. This is part of the glorifying either the Qur'an or the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Mosques are for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Mosques are for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not for anyone else, not for anything else. So it's not a place of trade. It's not. There is a serious issue once it comes to the use of the mosque. We have been mentioning so many things. This is why one of the worst things is the most unjust, the most evil, is to prevent prayers from taking place, prevent people from praying at mosques. And it did happen, and it is happening. There is an amazing text by Imam Qurtubi in his tafsir about the prevention of people, preventing Muslims from praying at the mosque, and you will be amazed. The text is shocking, really, that we have similarities between today and yesterday. Yesterday, during the time of the Crusades, for example. But this we need to postpone until the next session, inshallah. Until then, سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.